This conference will now be recorded.
Call the meeting to order. First, pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Leslie, the roll call, please.
Committee Chair Jeffrey Rosenthal.
Here.
Committee members Kenneth DeWitt. Here. And Albert Hayes.
Here.
Board Chairman Mark Finkel.
Here.
Board Member Timothy Regan. Here. Board Member, let's see, Executive Director John Callahan. Present. General Counsel Robert Leslie present. Chief Fiscal Officer Timothy Municha. Here. Chief Engineer Robert Fulton. Here. Area Administrator John Hodgson. Here. Compliance Officer Stephanie Rizicki. Here. And through video feed, Committee Member Alfred Candido.
Here.
And Board Member Richard Bird.
Here.
Thank you.
All present and accounted for.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt or revise today's agenda.
I will make that motion. I'll second it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? I'll entertain a motion for approval of the March 9, 2021 committee meeting notes. That'll be the governance committee.
I'll make that motion. Did you do it?
Second,
Second that.
Mr. Hayes.
any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
New business, Mr. Manisha. A motion to advance awarding the regulating district's insurance program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's all yours.
Seek the board's approval to take two actions today. First involves continuing a relationship for an additional year with Cool Insuring that has existed for many years with respect to the regulating district's insurance program. The second involves reviewing and authorizing payment for an insurance program effective July 1, 2021. With respect to the first resolution, the most notable change from a year ago is the combination of operations between Cool Insuring and Arthur J. Gallagher. To date, we've seen no diminution in the service we have received since this combination was announced in December of 2020. As such, we seek approval from the board to formalize this arrangement by approving this resolution. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this first resolution.
Tim, just a question on the competitive pricing for the insurance policies. Is this just like everything else through the state? It's a set. There's certain people that that the state has to deal with, or how do you go about determining the carrier?
So we have gone through competitive procurement with Cool in the past. As I was going to mention in the second resolution, we had sought to do that again, and we're in the process of doing that again last February and March when the pandemic hit. At that time, we suspended because there were elements of that procurement that couldn't be carried out given the restrictions that arose as a result of the pandemic. So we have continued and sought the board's approval to continue working with now Arthur J. Gallagher for one more year. I expect we will be back for a competitive procurement when we enter, January, February of 2022.
Just curious, I can't shut up yet. Why not competitive now?
In part because in order for there to be an equal playing field, access to physical inspection of the facilities and the structures was going to be an important part of that.
This is the dams and stuff.
And all of the other aspects of our insurance program. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Sure.
I should have recognized our former director and current Assemblyman Robert Smullen is on the call, and I just wanted to say hi.
Hello, Robert.
Nice to see you.
Mr. Chairman.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here today.
Also ask if if he'd like to say something, and if his
Yeah.
schedule is such that he needs to do so now, because I know today's a session day.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if you, we know it's a session day. If it's something you like to say or do at this point, we will open the floor to you.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman, for the consideration. To all the board members and to all the members of the audience at the Sacandaga Field Office, as well as those online. It's great to see everyone. I only wish the very best for the organization, and I hope that the lake levels are to everyone's satisfaction. It's a fantastic day, and I appreciate the opportunity to comment. I understand that John Hodgson may be retiring today. Is that a true statement?
This is his last board meeting, yes.
Yes. Well, it's quite an accomplishment. It's quite an achievement. And I just wanted to recognize that fact, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. I truly enjoyed working with Mr. Hodgson. I wanted to celebrate not only his service to New York State through the Hudson River Black River Regulating District, but also in the Coast Guard. And I wish him fair winds and following seas to he and Delinda in their next chapter of their lives. Thank you very much for allowing me an opportunity to speak.
John, why don't you come in for a second?
Thank you very much. It's much appreciated, and a nice surprise to have you on here and see you back in the boardroom again. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Smolin.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Mullins, and thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And that brings
Semper
us back.
Fi, everyone. Thank you.
And I know if you have to go, we understand, so. Thank you.
At this point, there's a resolution to award the regulating district's annual insurance program for the policy year, July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 on the table.
So that's a motion to advance to the regular board.
Yes.
Any takers?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. DeWitt?
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Mr. Leslie, a motion to advance.
There is now a resolution to
Oh,
approve
I
the
missed
insurance
one.
proposal
I
for
missed
policy year, July 1, 2020.
Okay.
Through June 30th, 2022. This is also Mr. Minicha awarding to Arthur J. Gallagher the insurance program for that policy.
Thank you both. You may recall that when we were in this position last year, Pool faced a number of challenges in putting together an insurance program for the regulating district. The exit from the market of the district's previous provider of general liability coverage, COVID-19 pandemic's impact on physical inspection of infrastructure facilities, and the impact of the breach of dams around Midland, Michigan on prospective carriers' willingness to underwrite general liability and umbrella coverage for the district. Regrettably, some of those challenges recurred this year, most notably the filing of lawsuits related to last year's dam failure in Michigan. Otherwise, the vast majority of the coverage is quite similar to what the regulating has obtained in prior years. The only item that is different is the reduction in umbrella or excess liability coverage from 10 million to 5 million. This arose because the district's carrier, Indian Harbor, offered to provide 5 million in coverage as of July 1. Arthur did conduct national and other providers to attempt to identify a second carrier who would be willing to write a separate $5 million policy. None emerged. Given this development, we asked the board to approve this resolution that includes an approximately $8,700 reduction in premium from what the regulating district paid for in the current year.
Okay, I'm confused with the difference or distinction between item I and item double I.
So first resolution is to authorize working with Arthur J. Gallagher for the coming year.
Okay.
Second is to approve the payment of $190,070 as the total premium for that insurance program for the
Okay.
July 1, 2021, June 30, 2022.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to advance that.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Mr. Hayes,
A second.
Mr. Reagan, I'm not sure you're on that committee.
I'll
second.
Mr. Candido.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Third item, it is now you, Mr. Leslie, a resolution to approve and advance to the board a second amendment to the reservoir operating agreement.
So we have a reservoir operating agreement between the Hudson River Black River Regulating District and Erie Boulevard Hydropower LP up at EJ West. The original agreement dated in 2003, later amended in 2006, expires this June 30th of 2021. As we continue our negotiations with Erie towards a new agreement, successor agreement to those entered in 1927, 1939, 49, 71, and 80. We've hired Walden Engineering previously, pursuant to board resolution, to appraise the fair market value of our 56 feet of head used by Erie at Conklinville for EJ West. And we plan to rely on that appraisal once it comes in our negotiation with Erie. However, the appraisal is not better. We need another year of the reservoir operating agreement in order to have an opportunity to negotiate that long-term agreement. And Erie has advanced to us an executed copy of the document which we had presented to them, giving us that year. This resolution would approve the executive director's execution of that one-year extender.
I'm good with the one-year extender. Just a question, why isn't the appraisal back?
It took a significant amount of time to get through the procurement process that we needed to go through and to get approval from the Office of the State Comptroller. It then has taken a significant amount of time for Walden to get up to speed and to secure documentation that they would need to basically support their valuation from Erie. And as they had difficulty securing those documentation from Erie, they found other sources for some of those documents or estimated what they believe those documents would say based on publicly available data that perhaps Erie is not terribly excited about making available to them. So it's taken a little bit of time for them to get to that point. Even if we were to get that appraisal back today, it's unlikely that in the next 2 weeks we would be able to come up with a good, durable, long-term agreement that's probably going to last 20 years. We kind of anticipated that we would be in this position.
Let me just add to that briefly, if I can, Counselor. We just did have a kickoff meeting and tour of the facility led by the chief engineer last month. This is a fairly exotic product that we need. It's not a standard run-of-the-mill appraisal. What they are paying for is a certain thing, and that is the very thing that needs to be appraised. It's not a run-of-the-mill hydropower appraisal. So that's the nuance of that, is added some complexity and some corresponding time in the process. Certainly, I think we started at the right time, but various steps along the way, Councilor already mentioned the procurement issues, and OSC approval took a little longer than anticipated. But I think they've hit the ground running, and we think we'll get a good product.
Me? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to advance to the board a resolution for amendment.
Mr. Candido?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Candido. Any seconds?
Second.
DeWitt.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Advance to the board. And finally, Mr. Callahan, I shouldn't say finally, the next on the agenda, a resolution to approve an agreement with the New York State Department of Civil Service concerning attendance and leave transfers. Mr. Callahan.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is a tool that many state agencies and authorities have in their toolbox to facilitate recruitment of other state employees to that agency or provide opportunities for employees at the agency that want to transfer elsewhere in state government. It's a reciprocal agreement facilitated by the Department of Civil Service for transfer of leave credits and service credit. In other words, if you were going from one executive branch state agency to another, all of your vacation time, your sick leave time would transfer over. You wouldn't lose it. In our case, that is not the case because we have not had, as 4 dozen or so other state agencies and authorities do, a reciprocal agreement to facilitate that. So what this does is authorize the executive director to enter into an agreement with civil service. We opened the conversation with this department concerning vacation leave and sick leave. In order to sign this agreement, our benefits need to be comparable to the state benefits as a whole. Our sick leave benefits are comparable. Our vacation leave benefits are a little bit of an outlier in terms of slightly more generous than the state. So this pertains to sick leave credit only, but again, it's an important tool for employees for our ability to recruit other state employees or to provide opportunities for existing team members here who want to pursue other employees within state government. Mr. Leslie, do you add anything to that?
I'm speculating here, but the difference in our vacation leave policy has to do with timing of the benefit rather than the totality of the benefit.
Yeah, I think there's a longevity issue too.
Okay.
Well, with that, Mr. Chairman, we'd appreciate the board advancing this.
Understood. Resolution to approve this? This moves to the board though, correct?
This goes to the board.
I'll entertain a motion for a resolution advancing to the board an agreement.
So moved. I'll
with Civil
move.
Service Department. Mr.
Mr.
Candido,
Candido.
thank you. Any seconds?
I'll second that.
Mr. Hayes.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. I will now entertain a motion for an adjournment of the governance committee.
So move.
Second,
Second.
Mr. Hayes, Mr. DeWitt.
all in favor? Aye.
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 Governance committee is adjourned. You just wanted to see me use that, right?
10:19.
He wanted a quick gavel and he wanted it back.
I didn't get that. Brought it over here.
I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Roll call, Mr. Leslie.
Committee Chair Kenneth DeWitt.
Here.
Committee members Jeffrey Rosenthal.
Here,
Albert Hayes.
Here.
Timothy Reagan. Board Chairman Mark Finkel.
Here.
Executive Director John Callahan.
Present.
General Counsel Robert Leslie, present. Chief Fiscal Officer Timothy Medici.
Here.
Chief Engineer Robert Fultan.
Here.
Area Administrator John Hudson.
Here.
Compliance Officer Stephanie Rizicki.
Here.
Through video board members Richard Byrd.
Here.
And Alfred J. Cognito, Jr.
Here.
All present and accounted for, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the revised meeting agenda.
so moved.
Mr. Rosenthal,
Second.
Second.
Mr. Hayes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Can I have a motion to approve approval of May 11th, 2021 Financial Committee meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Reagan, Mr. Rosenthal, Mr. Reagan.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Committee business, new business, a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of a budget for the Hudson River Black River Regulating District for the period July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2024, and fourth year projected financial plan for the period July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Mr. Minuccia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a privilege to present to you final proposed budget for the July 1, 2021, June 30, 2024 period for your review. The document itself, which can be found on page 20 of your packet, represents a truly collaborative effort to create something that has not existed in recent years, namely standalone budget booklet that describes not just where the money comes from and where the money goes, but also describes the statutory basis for such actions, lists the assumptions that underlie the numbers, and charts the formal path that the regulating district has taken since last December in crafting this 3-year budget. I am grateful for the numerous contributions my colleagues have made in helping create this document. When we began the formal process of budget development in December, regulating district was facing a projected deficit of approximately $2.2 million. Through a combination of hard work, persistence, and creativity, I'm happy to say that this budget is balanced when viewed over the 3 fiscal years that it covers. It also controls growth in operating expenses, freezes staffing levels, and most importantly, makes $9 million in strategic investments in critical infrastructure to protect the health and safety of residents in the Hudson River and Black River watersheds. Please remember that this $9 million does not include the $20 million to be invested by the state of New York for vital work at Conklinville during this period. Most of what you have before you are not dramatically different from what we discussed last month when the budget was provided in draft form. We incorporated valuable feedback that individual board members provided and sharpened our pencils once again to find some additional savings. These savings bring the increase in the assessment paid by Black River area beneficiaries down to less than 25% from the 30% projected last month. At this level, Black River area assessment revenue remains less than what the regulating district collected 8 years ago. At this point, let me stop and offer to answer any questions you may have about the proposed budget for the 2022-2024 triennium.
No, I don't have anything. Looking at it.
I just want to bring up a point that I've heard around the lake that there's going to be an increase in permit this year, next year, and so on. And there's not going to be an increase in permit.
There are no increased permit fees in anywhere to be found in this budget proposal before you.
Thank you. Sure. Anything else? No questions? So can I have a motion to advance to the full board the budget for the Hudson River Black River Regulating District?
So moved.
Mr. Rosenthal,
Second.
Mr. Reagan.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption the July 1 through 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Black River Area Assessment? Mr. Minuccia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Environmental Conservation Law, Title 21, Sections 15-2123 and 15-2125 empowers the board to annually prepare a statement showing the name of each public corporation and a description of each parcel of real estate benefited by such reservoir and the amount of operation and maintenance charges to be borne by each as determined in the apportionment. In this first of 4 resolutions, we ask the board to approve the annual assessment for storage reservoirs for the Black River watershed for the first year of the budget period beginning July 1, 2021 in the amount of $1,141,728. 5 counties in the Black River area pay 7.18% of this amount, and hydroelectric producers cover the remaining 92.82%.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Black River assessment?
I'll make that.
Mr. Reagan,
I'll second.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Black River area New York State share? Mr. Minutia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this second resolution, we ask the board to approve the state share for storage reservoirs for the Black River watershed for the first year of the budget period beginning July 1, 2021, in the total amount of $222,944. You may recall that the Black River area has received $250,000 from New York State each year since 2015-16. While the amount is smaller next year, over the course of the entire 3-year period, the Black River area will receive nearly $338,000 more than it has in previous budgets.
Comment? Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Black River area New York State share?
I'll move.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Rosenthal, Mr. Hayes.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Can I make a motion? Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption the July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Hudson River area assessment? Mr. Minutia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this third of 4 resolutions, we ask the board to approve the annual assessment for storage reservoirs for the Hudson River watershed for the first year of the budget period beginning July 1, 2021, in the total amount of $3,113,850. This represents 77.82% of the costs approved by the board for fiscal year 2021-22 after deducting non-assessment revenue, also approved by the board by the Finance Committee a few moments ago. This percentage, 77.82%, was agreed to in the legal settlement with the Hudson River area downstream counties in 2013.
Any questions? Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Hudson River area assessment?
So moved.
Mr. Rosenthal,
Second.
Mr. Reagan,
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Hudson River area New York State share?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this 4th resolution, we ask the board to approve the state share for storage reservoirs for the Hudson River watershed for the first year of the budget period beginning July 1, 2021, in the total amount of $1,027,056. This represents the remaining 22.18% of the costs approved by the board for fiscal year 2021-22 after deducting non-assessment revenue. This percentage was also agreed to in the legal settlement with the Hudson River area downstream counties.
Any discussion? Can I make a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of the July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Hudson River area assessment?
So moved.
Mr. Rosenthal,
Second that.
Mr. Hayes.
Can I have a motion to advance?
Need a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Can I have a motion to advance to the full board and recommend adoption of July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022.
We're done with that. We're up to adjournment.
I have a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee meeting.
Make that motion.
Mr. Reagan,
Second,
Second.
Mr. Rosenthal.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved.
At 10:31.
Everybody ready? Like to call the June meeting of the Hudson River Black River Regulating District to order. Mr. Leslie, roll call.
Mark Finkel,
Here.
Jeffrey Rosenthal,
Here.
Kenneth DeWitt,
Here.
Albert Hayes,
Here.
Timothy Reagan, John Callahan,
Present.
Robert Leslie present, Robert Fulton,
Here.
Tim Minicha,
Here.
John Hodgson, Stephanie Rizicki, through video feed, Richard Byrd,
Here.
and Alfred Candido,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. I need a motion to revise our agenda meeting to add item 11A for special presentation and move the administrator's report to 11B. I need a motion to make that revision.
I'll gladly make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Rosenthal and Mr. DeWitt.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Introduction of guests, we had already introduced our assemblyman, and we were glad to have him. I know he's had other business. But I want to recognize the fact that he was here. Public comment period. We have a good crowd out here. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? I have not gotten anything in writing.
We don't have any emails from our administration.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I do have paper. David Smale? No? Oh, okay. Arthur Ambrosino? Did you want to speak? Oh, okay. All right. You stood up, did you?
Christine Guzens has indicated she'd like to speak.
Oh, please. Floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
You can.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Hodgson on the news today. And also it's exciting to see Mr. Smullen in the room as well. So I wanted to just voice a concern about a conceptual RV park plan. I'm a resident on Woods Hollow Road, and as you know, our bay is very small, and our street is actually a dead-end road. So there's some concerns regarding some environmental issues and also some safety and traffic concerns, which we currently experience now. So moving forward, if the conceptual plan was to be in place with possible 60 slip marina at the end of our bay, which, as everybody knows, towards the August period of time, the water gets very low, and also the narrow channel. We are just there's a group of residents that are very concerned about this conceptual plan actually happening. So I just wanted to say that I'll probably joining most of your meetings, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody have any comment? Thank you very much. I need the approval of the May 11th, 2021 regular board meeting minutes. Who we all got?
So moved.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or revisions? All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Report of our executive director, Mr. Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. In light of the heavy agenda, I'll just simply note my report begins on page 69. Just want to note on social media, we continue to make strides there and communicating with the public, picking up nearly 200 new followers over the last month. And that's over 1,000 new followers in the last 18 months. So it continues to be a critically important tool for us to communicate about things like the Conklinville Dam project, which people are certainly very interested in, and we'll be doing that later in the summer through typical traditional media avenues as well. Just want to also note briefly for the members of the board, we will be hosting several members of our executive chamber contacts, team members here for a tour this coming Thursday. And with that, I'd invite any questions from any board members.
Very good. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Contracts and actions. First one is a presentation. And you're gonna have to forgive me, I left my glasses at home, so I'm having trouble reading some of this. I'm a little slower. Summary of field investigation.
Can't even see my glasses.
No, I didn't. Summary of field investigation work and concept design for the remediation of the Old Forge and Six Lake Dam. Arcadius of New York Incorporated.
Okay, this is our consultant. Should be joining us shortly. Robert Titus is the senior civil engineer that we've been dealing with. We will be giving us a presentation on field work, findings, and assessment that they've made thus far on the Old Forge and Six Lake with regard to an eye toward remediation of the facilities, bring them into compliance with DEC dam safety regulations. And Bob, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Right.
Give that introduction, and Mr. Chairman, if you would give Bob the floor, and he can move through the presentation.
So somebody just handed me glasses, so.
You have the same slide presentation in front of you also.
Yeah. Welcome, and we welcome your report.
Okay, thank you. And you can see the presentation right now so far?
Yeah, we can.
And we all have copies of it.
Okay. So thank you for being given this opportunity. Again, my name is Bob Titus with Arcadis. Also presenting today will be Eric Lanzarada from my office, and two other people from Arcadis are on the line, Dan Lowenstein and Mike Kosher. So as Rob mentioned, we just want to go through some of our findings and some of our next steps for the Old Forge and Six Lake Dam Study and Rehabilitation project. So we have performed some field work to date, some topography, geotechnical borings, and underwater investigations included in that. And from there we completed some detailed analyses, and we got into really into the weeds of the details of some issues, and we just want to summarize our findings here. So just a quick agenda. We're just going to look at the previous recommendations where things started, go through our findings and alternatives for rehab at both dams, look at some additional considerations, and then look at the path and go over what's the next steps. So when we started out, there was a scope that was laid out in the previous EAs for the two dams, and they're listed here. I don't want to read each one, but in general, at each dam, there was some spillway capacity issues noted, issues with their low-level outlets, and some deterioration of concrete and steel in the structures, and there was some potential for stability and or seepage concerns at both dams. So we'll kick into the findings at Old Forge. So for hydrology and hydraulics, that's H&H. So we did confirm the classification, the hazard classification of B, and the spillway capacity. We did look at that in detail, and you'll notice the table in the lower right. So the existing spillway does not have sufficient capacity to handle the regulatory spillway design flood, that's the SDF. We did find that it overtops by 0.6 feet, the dam does. And so then the drawdown does not meet the regulatory requirements. And again, look at the table in the lower right, we just laid out some information for reference of, what basically we would need in order to be able to pass the SDF and meet the regulatory requirements. And for geotechnical and stability, we did find that the stability factors of safety, the FOSs, were lower than required regulatory requirement. And there was some possible stability to be gained by the interface between the bedrock and or the sides of the dam. So noting that, we can't really confirm that right at the moment. There just wasn't enough information in the historical documents, and we didn't want to drill necessarily into the dam itself to see what that interface would be like. But some geotechnical investigation nearby did find that the bedrock was shallow, and that certainly could be a benefit to augment the spillway, or augment or replace the spillway.
Bob, we're going to talk a little quickly about some of the alternatives we've outlined. Alternative one being the installation of a inflatable weir system, typically referred to as an Obermeyer, which is a proprietary system. This would require us to modify the dam, which would also allow us to perform the concrete repairs and repairs to the gates, addressing other deficiencies that were noted, would provide the necessary spillway capacity with minimal secondary modifications. In order to address stability, we would most likely have to install post-tensioned anchors through the dam. This system relies on a pneumatically operated bladder that keeps the reservoir contained. It is dependent on that bladder being inflated, so there is the potential that either through damage or prolonged power outage, the bladder could deflate, thereby releasing some of the impounded water. It does provide the district with the ability to control water level, either during the season or in advance of a storm event. As I mentioned earlier, installation of the anchors has the potential, due to their intrusive nature and due to the loads, that could end up resulting in some structural impact, depending on the condition of the concrete as we're performing that work. There is the likelihood that a cofferdam or lowering of the lake would be required in order to perform this work. And then there's going to be an additional aesthetic impact, as this will be a more mechanical looking system than the existing dam. Okay. Second alternative we considered is the construction of a labyrinth or piano key spillway system. This would allow us to meet the discharge requirements of the spillway. It allows us to address the stability deficiencies and address all of the identified issues with the concrete, the sluice gates, and then the other openings. However, it does require that we would have to raise and lengthen the dam to meet the freeboard requirements and provide proper tie-in to the existing topography. Just as a reference, looking at raising the crest of the dam approximately 1 foot, and would have to extend the dam north and south to meet the existing topography. This option, we would anticipate placing mass concrete as part of the base for the labyrinth, but that would provide us the ability to address the stability concerns without having to potentially disturb the existing dam beyond whatever the modifications are necessary. It allows us to also deal with the gate structures and the seepage that's been noted at the toe. Again, there is going to be likelihood of a cofferdam or lowering of the lake necessary to install the structure, and then it will be an aesthetic impact, in this case, the extending north and south beyond the existing limits of the dam. Okay. Third alternative considered is a full replacement of Old Forge Dam and the spillway. This addresses all of the hydraulic requirements, all of the stability concerns, all of the maintenance items. It does require that the dam achieve all of the current regulations for a new dam. As part of this, the freeboard actually has to be increased to 2 feet. again requiring an extension north and south, likely into the meet existing topography. There's the potential that if sequenced properly, a cofferdam could become the final dam, try in an attempt to maximize the expenditure of funds. We would likely build upstream of the existing dam, allowing us a larger spillway length. It should be noted that, again, extending the dam north and south will likely impact neighboring properties due to the freeboard requirement. However, a benefit is that as part of a construction of a new dam, you would be able to change up your operating characteristics to achieve your desired goals. I'll hand it back over to Bob.
Thanks, Eric. So jumping over to Six Lake Dam, the findings that we got at that dam. So we did confirm that the hazard classification was still C at that dam. And as mentioned, the spillway capacity doesn't have sufficient capacity to handle the regulatory SDF. The dam does overtop by 0.1 feet. The drawdown does not meet the regulatory requirements for this one as well. It's a little bit longer. The regulation is 14 days, and this one is 23.6 days. And just one item to note that the downstream Route 28 culvert does restrict flow from the SDF, causing backup at the dam all the way up the channel to the dam. And we did perform quite a bit of field work to confirm this data. And so for geotechnical, we did install some new piezometers. And so we did do some geotechnical explorations, and in some of those borings, we did install piezometers before we left. As well with this one, not all embankment stability factors of safety meet the regulatory requirement, but most of them do. I think if I'm correct, all but one of them did meet the factors of safety that are required. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, one upstream and one downstream.
Mm-hmm. Oh, was it? All right. And the spillway section did exceed the factors of safety requirement. And so we did in our field work, topography, and other data collection, we did confirm the geometry of the spillway and use that in our calculations. And so as a result, rehabilitation of the embankment section is possible, and leaving it in place and simply rehabilitating what's there. And we also did perform some underwater investigations to confirm the condition of the concrete and steel. There wasn't any glaring issues with that. But you know, the known issues regarding some deterioration was still confirmed. And as noted with Old Forge, there's a table in the lower right that mentions what the spillway length would have to be in order to meet the regulatory requirement for the spillway design flood. And so in order to maintain the existing spillway elevation, the spillway length would have to be approximately 120 feet. And I'll kick it over to Eric to go through the alternatives again.
So we've outlined two alternatives. The first alternative would be a longitudinal extension of the existing spillway structure into the embankment to meet the necessary spillway length. It allows an opportunity to address the concrete, the existing sluice gates, and other components. As part of this, we would need to install a seepage filter on the downstream face of the dam to address the existing seepage, as well install weighted buttresses on the upstream and downstream toes to address those two factors of safety. We would have an opportunity to address the drawdown capacity. However, as related to Old Forge, in order to meet the freeboard requirements, we're anticipating that the dam would need to be raised and likely extended north and south into the existing topography. Extending the existing spillway does impact the embankment, which is something that has the potential to be problematic, but is doable. This alternative does require the installation of a cofferdam and or likely lowering of the lake level in order to complete the work. And again, extending the dam north and south does potentially tie into the existing topography, does potentially impact adjoining property owners. Bob? The second alternative would be a more extensive rehabilitation where we would replace the existing gate structure, install larger gates to meet the drawdown capacity. We would install a labyrinth weir in order to achieve the required spillway length and minimizing the footprint. We would install a seepage filter on the downstream face, as well as buttresses on the upstream and downstream toes to achieve the embankment stability factors. The labyrinth option provides us the spillway length we need and minimizing the footprint impact to the existing embankment. We will still likely need to increase the height of the dam and therefore lengthen it to meet the existing, provide the proper topographic tie-in. However, we do address all of the identified stability, or not stability, structural issues, and meet the have the ability to increase the drawdown capacity. Again, this option likely requires the installation of a cofferdam or lowering of the lake in order to perform the work. Bob?
Right, so I'm going to summarize on the next few slides the findings and some of the next factors to consider. So for the spillway capacity can be increased at Old Forge, but it's certainly going to be more extensive than originally expected. It'll be difficult to achieve some of the necessary freeboard requirements. The elevations that are available to us at Old Forge are simply just very tight. The outlet gate capacity can be increased by possibly rehabilitating the third opening. There's 2 gates in the dam right now that are operational. There's a third opening that has been operational some time, so there's potential to rehabilitate that and get us to the low-level outlet capacity we need. Improving the stability, there are options to improve the stability and the existing structure to continue to provide support. There are some substantial modifications needed to address that, and further modifications to the spillway could decrease the stability of the spillway. Counterintuitive a little bit. While rehabilitating the gatehouse and spillway, we may find some need for additional rehabilitation once they start rehabilitating. So when they start chipping away at concrete to find good concrete, they may just keep having to chip away. So some factors to keep in mind when considering the alternatives that we've presented here. If we have to do a new dam, that's obviously beyond what was originally planned. The construction of a new dam pushes the structure into the more stringent regulatory requirements, and that is very important because, as Eric mentioned, there is 2 feet of freeboard that will be needed. Right now, with the existing dam, we tried to stick with 1 foot of freeboard. And with that extra foot that it pushes us to, it will be difficult to achieve that. But if the dam can be raised, there's other impacts to consider. And then what is the extent of the gatehouse replacement that we want to engage in? Do we want to rehabilitate, just create larger openings, or is there more extensive replacement intended? So for Sixth Lake, the need for larger outlets requires some substantial structural modifications. As the numbers that we mentioned in the slide showed that the low-level outlet capacity is much less to meet the requirements at Sixth Lake than it was at Old Forge. So we will have to open, and there isn't another opening available to us that we can rehabilitate. So we can only work within the existing openings, or with whatever other gatehouse modifications we have to make. And achieving the free requirement in Sixth Lake, I think that can be done in the existing space available, but it's going to be a balance of how long we're willing to make the dam or the new spillway versus the possibility of raising the dam. So there's definitely going to be a balance there between those two. And similar with Old Forge, as we perform work on the gatehouse and the spillway, there may be more rehabilitation becomes evident as we do that work. And the existing embankment certainly can be stabilized with adding additional material. And a couple of factors to keep in mind with Sixth Lake, whether or not we want to replace the gatehouse structure and the extending the embankment that we're willing to modify to gain more spillway length. and some last additional considerations for the entire project. As noted, working with the existing concrete can have some poorly defined limits of work. Rehabilitation of the new dams can require coffer dams and increase the cost quite a bit. And land available for longer embankment spillway to achieve the longer embankments and the spillways is the freeboard available is unclear, and a greater in freeboard may impact upstream properties during flood events. And then we'll move on to the next steps. You know, we just want to have an open discussion, you know, in as much as as everybody wants. We just want to understand what the district's preferred path is for both dams. You know, which way to go forward from here. And we just need to look at restructuring the current task work order and focus on some specific options. So, do we want to pursue some in-depth analysis of specific alternatives, or do we just want to focus on certain ones, or multiple alternatives? We want to pursue some additional modeling or evaluation of specific alternatives. And does the regulating district want to see some detailed cost analysis for specific alternatives or all that we've presented? So that's what we want to try to get an understanding with next. So that's what we have. That's a lot of information, but
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Certainly answer any questions you might have myself.
Oh my God.
Why did you look right at me, Mr. Felton? My question or my concern is at some point, we have a number of options laid out. There seems to be for me, no sense of identifying or prioritizing those available options and utilizing expertise, decide on what options in fact are viable, because I don't think for myself, I'll acknowledge, I don't have the expertise to make that decision. So what we need is a lot of guidance along the way, helping us what the best solution is. And that's something I'm not seeing.
And we can certainly, as Bob mentioned, you know, one of the, you know, in his next steps, one of the options at this point is to refocus, redirect our attention, and maybe take one or several of the alternatives that we have, refine them a little bit, and develop some estimates of costs to assist in that comparison. I think overall, from just a technical and regulatory compliance standpoint, all the options are viable and will cover all of the and allow us to become compliant with all of the requirements for DEC dam safety. But it's more of a matter of choosing that option or the alternative based on one, cost, but also the other considerations that were mentioned: impact to surrounding properties, the potential need to raise the embankments, for example. So,
and I think that's where we've got to kind of have some clear direction. Because if we don't want to impact the property, you know, with things going up, that changes the options that are available to you. Going through there, so I think we got to give somebody some direction and say, okay.
And also, if you do one dam with all your equipment there, you do the other dam, is that cheaper, or you know, we're doing one at a time and then
certainly.
I think it's all there, it'd be cheaper.
I think
you would think so.
Right, because mobilization is a big part of the job, and the larger job might be more successfully bid and responded to than a smaller piecemeal job. We already are thinking that we would do both construction jobs under one solicitation, and then over a series of years, finish the work at both facilities.
Now, with that culvert on 29, would that be part of the project?
That would not be part of the project.
Would we have to have the state enlarge that culvert?
I'm not sure that we would have asked them to. Their culvert is designed for a specific flow. We could indicate to them when we've done all of the final design, what the impact would be. Then supposed to see what the response is at that point. But at this time, we're not intending to make any modifications to downstream structures.
Now, during the ice storm in 98, whatever year that ice storm was, and this may not be true, this is what I heard, that there was almost a failure of a dam, and they were alerting people down Lyons Falls and stuff in the lower area that a dam could fail at Old Forge. I'm guessing it's one of these dams or no?
It wasn't one of our dams. No, there are three other structures downstream of Old Forge at the lower end of the Moose River, where it comes into the Black River. It was possible it was one of those structures.
If I remember right, somebody said it was the Earth Dam on one of those.
96.
Is that when the ice storm was?
Yeah, I don't remember the date exactly.
I
I don't believe it was our structures.
I just was wondering if this would take care of that issue.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was our structure, but,
Yeah, I got you.
but all the repairs would take care of any of the non-compliance deficiencies that exist with regard to DEC dam safety.
So what's the next steps with this?
Well, the next step will be that the staff will work with Arcadis to come up with a refocused game plan in terms of further refinement of the alternatives. And it sounds like there's a preference for having a couple of alternatives, or at least alternatives with significant detail, such that we might be able to identify more accurately considerations associated with each of the alternatives before we decide to direct Arcadis on a final design of one of the alternatives that will locate.
Well, and we need your expert, we need the expertise of our experts.
It just seems as a board member, at some point, there has to be a preference assigned by the experts to one or more of the alternatives.
We certainly are heading that direction. We just wanted to give an update.
Okay.
To this point, we're about maybe 25% in on the project or so.
Can I add to that, Bob?
Yes.
Part of the value of this presentation for all the members of the board, I think, is to indicate quite simply the layers of complexity here as you look more closely at what those alternatives might be, and that you may need to go in directions that weren't initially envisioned. And so a lot further work between Rob and the consultants, and then to get to that point where we're back to the board with recommendations.
Right. Yeah, it may be that, as we work through this, it becomes apparent that there's only one solution in terms of the extent of improvements that need to be made, and whether it be one or multiple. With my recommendation, with Arcadis' recommendation attached, at some point in the future, we bring that back to the board for recommendation in terms of moving forward with the final design.
That would include modeling, if anything upstream, for the water level going up upstream.
Certainly, if there was any changes in the current operation that would result or impacts on their,
Everybody be very clear what that.
we would identify all of those, take those into consideration. My personal preference is to try to minimize or completely eliminate all of those and not change any regime, flow or elevation at all upstream. And for many different reasons, but yes. That hopefully will be something we can achieve based on the alternatives selected. But it's possible that either the additional spillway length that's required or the elimination of, or also the need to add to embankment height might cause us to have to impact some of those historic operating conditions.
Well, anybody else have anything else? I want to thank our case for the presentation. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And we will look forward to the updates. Next, resolution to award the work to perform a light detection and ranging survey program at Conklinville. Both.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I think that is on page 70, thank you, of your board packet. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission requires completion of recommendations made by the fourth Part 12 independent consultant. Mentioned that a couple of times this week. Yes, similar.
Only a couple.
Only a couple. The study was completed, safety inspection report was completed January 2020, and the safety inspection report made a recommendation, requires the implementation of a light detection and ranging LiDAR laser survey program to verify the crest elevation of the embankment at Conklinville and to identify and monitor subsidence and changes which may occur in the surface of the embankment. Consistent with the state procurement guidelines, staff has reviewed annual qualifications and evaluated qualifications to identify a firm that is most highly qualified to provide the services required. We evaluated 3 firms that were most highly qualified and identified the firm which was highest qualified to complete the work. Based on the evaluation, the team has determined that MJ Engineering and Land Surveying PC is the highest qualified firm to complete the LiDAR survey work. MJ has provided us, attached to my memorandum, a proposed proposal, scope and fee to establish survey control points and conduct a laser scan survey for Conklinville Dam, and develop surface mapping, imagery, and sections of the embankment dam in an initial survey this year and to follow-up surveys in 22 and 23. They propose to do that work for a not-to-exceed fee of $19,500. Regulating district staff recommends acceptance of MJ Engineering and Land Surveying's proposal. Seeks board authorization to form a contract for the completion of the work and authorization for the executive director to execute an agreement in the amount of $19,500. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on their proposal or that.
Any questions? If not, entertain a motion to accept the proposal at
So-
19, not to exceed 19,000.
So moved.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Rosenthal, who's second? Second. Mr. DeWitt?
It's 19,000.
19,000, excuse me. Even with the glasses. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Staff committee reports, governance committee first. Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have several matters that concern insurance. They were discussed and vetted in the governance committee. So first thing I'll do is entertain a motion to award the regulating district's insurance program from July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. Mr. Manisha, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, sir.
I'm entertain a motion. Oh, you'll entertain a motion.
I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Rosenthal?
A second.
Mr. Hayes. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Second.
These are similar, Mr. Finkel, a resolution to improve the insurance proposal, which again was fully discussed in the governance committee.
Need a motion to accept that?
So move.
Mr. Rosenthal?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. DeWitt, second.
Third matter, Mr. Finkel, was a presentation by Mr. Leslie in the governance committee. We seek to approve a second amendment to the reservoir operating agreement at Conklinville. And again, that was discussed in
Right.
detail at the governance committee.
Need a motion to extend that contract. It was for 1 year, wasn't it?
So
For
moved.
1 year.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Yeah, second that.
Mr.
Any
Hayes.
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And lastly, Mr. Finkel, there is a resolution now before the board concerning to improve the agreement with the New York State Department of Civil Service as it relates to attendance and leave transfers. The matter was discussed in detail at the governance committee.
We have a motion to that, effect, please.
So moved.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Second,
I'll second that.
Mr. Hayes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance Committee, Mr. DeWitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I have a resolution approving a budget for the Hudson River Black River Regulating District for the period July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2024, and fourth year projected financial plan for the period July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. I think everybody was here during the financial committee. Any other discussion?
Any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget.
I would make that motion.
Mr.
Second,
Hayes.
oh, sorry, excuse me.
I'll second.
Mr. Rosenthal.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Number 2, resolution to approve the July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Black River Area Assessment. Again, we discussed this during the financial committee. Can I have a resolution?
And I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make that. Mr. Reagan.
Second,
I'll second.
Mr. Rosenthal.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Third,
A resolution to approve the July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Black River Area New York State share. Again, that was discussed during the financial committee.
motion,
So moved.
second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next.
Number 4, resolution to approve the July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Hudson River Area Assessment.
A motion to that effect?
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Do we have a second?
Hayes Rosenthal.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And 5.
Number 5, resolution to approve the July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 Hudson River Area New York State share.
So moved.
We have a motion to that effect? Oh, you moved.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Second,
Second. Mr. Reagan.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, General Counsel's report, Mr. Leslie.
I'll try and be brief. My report is on page 76. Basically note that I continue to work with counsel for DEC, representatives from the Division of Budget and the Chamber to address how the regulating district can assist DEC complete the analysis, design, and construction work at Conconville. Also working with Mr. Manicha and obviously the executive director. Continue to confer with counsel for Brookfield regarding the new reservoir operating agreement at EJ West or Conconville, and working with the executive director and the principals of Stillwater Associates who have reached out regarding the potential for an extender to that agreement or failing a new agreement at Stillwater, the sale of those assets to the regulating district. Basically handled 3 FOIA requests during the reporting period. If there are any questions, ready to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Leslie? Thank you for your report. Compliance Officer, Ms. Rizek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report can be found on page 77 and details my work completed during the reporting period Just a couple items worth noting. We received 6 resumes for the summer labor positions. We interviewed and hired 3 applicants at SFO. To date, we have no one for the Black River area. I completed our quarterly compliance audit at the Hudson River area. Appropriate accounting measures are in place for our transactions and voucher processing. Finally, on pages 78 to 80, you will find the contract status sheets. Please review those as their inclusion in our board packet satisfies the public authority requirement. If any questions, if not, that completes my report.
Any questions, comments?
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie. Chief Fiscal Officer, again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can find the CFO report, page 81 of your packet. We have spent a lot of quality time today on regulating district finances. So with your permission, I'd like to bring to your attention the proposed sick leave payout for John Hudson. The documentation for this can be found starting on page 105 of your packet. You undoubtedly recall that the Inspector General report issued in April recommended, among other actions, that the board thoroughly review Hudson River Black River Regulating District's expenditures, particularly those involving accrued leave payouts to employees upon retirement. What you have is the board's first opportunity to act on this recommendation. We have estimated John Hodgson's estimated accrued sick leave payout based on his starting date with the regulating district, language of the management exempt employees, employment rules and benefit guidelines, and John's current hourly wage rate. Based on these calculations, we arrive at the $37,741.60 figure illustrated there. The regulating district will, as we would with any paycheck, incur the employer share of Social Security and Medicare taxes, which you see as well, thus bringing the regulating district's total to $40,628.83. In the resolution, we use up to and not to exceed language to provide John the flexibility to which he's entitled to use sick leave between today and his last day on June 23rd. If he uses none, then his gross payout will be the $37,741.60 figure. We shared the calculations and affidavit language you have before you in draft form with the Governor's Office of Employee Relations, and we thank them for providing valuable feedback. I am happy to answer any questions you have on this resolution.
Any questions, comments from anyone? If not, I'll entertain that resolution approving the cash payout of unused sick leave and freedom from contribution to health share premiums for Mr. Hudson.
I will gladly make that resolution. I will reluctantly second that because that means we're letting him retire. But
any further discussion? In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Chief Engineer, Mr. Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report begins on page 108. May was again a drier month in both areas. Precipitation in our watersheds about 30 to 40% of average in the Hudson area and about 45%, pretty close to the same, 35 to 45% in the Black River area with inflows to Great Sacandaga Lake and Indian Lake of about 50% of average, and at Stillwater, about 62% historic average. Each of our reservoirs are augmenting all the river systems with our releases and with the drier weather, despite keeping releases below historic average. Those reservoirs are all, with the exception of Wolf Course and Six Lake, continuing to draw down a little more rapidly when compared against historic average and target, but that is the intent and purpose of this. Also to keep the rivers flowing when there is not sufficient natural flow. That concludes part of operation. The only thing I would like to mention is that yesterday was the superintendent of the Black River area's 20th anniversary of employment, Mike Dickham. So I just wanted to
Wow.
publicly extend congratulations to him for being with the district for 1 year.
I may have seen you.
I don't know if you can answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
Is it going to rain? Probably not enough, but for some, but.
Thank you. We move to board member questions and comments.
I would just like to thank Mr. Bishop for his budgeting and the last several years.
Team effort.
We have we need a resolution for our next board meeting, July 13th. And it's been recommended that we may move that one to Utica and get it into the Black River area. So I'd like that's, of course, we could change that, but
July 13th.
July 13th.
I will. Second.
Who seconded it? Mr. Bird? Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now, I'd like to have Mr. Hudson come in, please.
Been a long time since we've called on Kirk. That's Linda as well.
I have a resolution for the board. Whereas John M. Hudson began his employment with the regulating district in June 2000 as a maintenance worker based at the Sacandaga Field Office. And whereas Mr. Hudson's distinguished career at the regulating district has spanned 2 decades and has also included service as engineering assistant, Hudson River Area Administrator, Black River Area Administrator, and interim executive director. And whereas Mr. Hodgins served honorably in the United States Coast Guard, retiring honorably as a first-class petty officer. And whereas the regulating district has benefited from Mr. Hodgins' skill, dedication, and professionalism in the execution of his duties. And whereas Mr. Hodgins has earned the respect and admiration of his colleagues, community leaders, and stakeholders alike through his leadership, honesty, thoughtfulness, and devotion to public service. And whereas Mr. Hodgins is retiring from the regulating district as area administrator for the Black River and Hudson River areas. And whereas Mr. Hodgins' exemplary public service to citizens of the United States and New York State warrants acclaim and acknowledgement. Now therefore be it resolved that the board of the Hudson River Black River Regulating District hereby commends John Hudson Sr. for his 2 decades of faithful service to the people and communities served by the regulating district, and be it further resolved that the board of the Hudson River Black River Regulating District expresses its sincere gratitude to John M. Hudson Sr. for the invaluable contribution he has made to the regulating district's mission through his faithful service, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution suitably engrossed will be transmitted to Mr. Hudson with the board's best wishes for a long and happy retirement.
That's pretty lengthy. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I appreciate the board, everything they've done for me through my career and my staff. But I have a bunch of stuff I want to say. On all staff, once I have, especially the board. Thank you for the opportunity you provided me. So,
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for you.
And you'll have that opportunity to provide those remarks to the full staff in
in just a few moments here. We'll have some additional presentations and a bite to eat after the meeting, so coming right up.
So now, John, you got that to-do list to do, right, Linda?
So I guess the only thing left then is, he's gonna give his report.
I think John, you're.
Reports on page 142.
Thank you. See you later. I won't be.
Motion to adjourn.
The phone's unlisted.
So moved. All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Thank you very much for this long meeting. Thank you. All right.
Albert and Jeff.
Oh,
Pleasure.
thank you.
Jeff, pleasure. Bye, Mr. Candido.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the wedding.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
How quickly you forgot.